America didn't just forget who built it, it buried the truth. By the Scope Investigations team. At a time when history is being rewritten in real time, when monuments to white supremacy are being quietly restored and the word racist is being edited out of museum brochures, one black man inside the U.S. Patent Office tried to stop the erasure over a century ago. His name was Henry E. Baker, and he uncovered the proof the U.S. government never wanted seen, that black Americans held over 1,200 invention patents by the early 20th century. Despite enslavement, segregation, and theft, black Americans weren't just laborers in America's foundation. They were inventors, engineers, and visionaries. Baker's records destroyed the myth that black Americans were passive bystanders to American progress. Yet 100 years later, the same country is once again trying to write them out. Earlier this year, Nigerian-American artist Shabuzi stood on the Grammy stage and declared that immigrants built this country. The backlash was instant. Bernice King, daughter of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., responded with precision. Enslaved Africans and their descendants did not immigrate. They were trafficked. Their labor was exploited to build this country's economy and infrastructure. That trauma shouldn't be erased. King's words were more than a clapback. They were a demand for historical accuracy. Black Americans, brought in chains, were America's original builders. They laid the bricks of the White House. They tilled the cotton that powered the economy. They were not seeking opportunity. They were forced labor-fueling empire. Incredibly, this wasn't even the most egregious attempt to overwrite black American identity in 2026. That dishonor belongs to Zoran Mamdani, the Indian-Ugandan immigrant who became mayor of New York. In a resurfaced college application to Columbia University, Mamdani had self-identified as African American to benefit from affirmative action. He later echoed Shabuzi's Grammy comment nearly word for word. This city was built by immigrants. Not by the enslaved, not by the descendants of enslaved people, just immigrants. Back in 1900, Henry E. Baker was an assistant patent examiner in Washington, D.C. What he heard in those halls echoed what we hear today, that black people hadn't contributed to invention. So he launched an unprecedented investigation. Baker sent 8,000 letters to lawyers, inventors, patent agents, and newspapers, asking one simple question: do you know of any black inventors? The replies were racist, dismissive, and telling. Over 2,500 responses said they'd never heard of one. Some called the idea a joke. But Baker kept going. He eventually uncovered 1 in 200 patents held by black Americans, and he verified 800 of them through the patent office. What he found was staggering. Black Americans had invented vital tools and technologies, often under conditions of legal discrimination or while still enslaved. Many had to hide their identity to sell products. 1/3 of inventors in Baker's database refused to let their names be published. They feared their inventions would be boycotted if buyers learned they were black. In 1913, Baker published The Colored Inventor to set the record straight, but few listened. Before the Civil War, patents were only granted to citizens. Enslaved people were not considered citizens. Their ideas were stolen by their enslavers, who took credit and profit. Thomas Jefferson, then Secretary of State, once attempted to take credit for a black inventor's design and lost in court. Jefferson Davis, future president of the Confederacy, tried to patent a steamship propeller invented by his own enslaved man, Benjamin Montgomery. The U.S. Patent Office denied the application, stating a slave had no legal standing to hold intellectual property. Davis reapplied using his brother's name, denied again. These were not isolated incidents. The cotton gin, the McCormick Reaper, even parts of Edison's light bulb trace back to black creators whose names were deleted from the record. Today, we know names like Louis Latimer, carbon filament, Madam C.J. Walker, hair care empire, Granville T. Woods, rail and telegraph tech, and Dr. Charles Drew, blood bank. But most black inventors remain anonymous, by design. Under Donald Trump's second term, erasure became policy. A 2225 executive order titled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History directed national museums and parks to remove divisive language. That meant eliminating exhibits referencing slavery, racism, or systemic oppression. One blatant example, the Medgar and Myrlie Evers Home National Monument in Mississippi. The brochure once called Evers' Assassin, Byron de la Beckwith, a racist. It described Evers' murder in visceral, truthful terms. The Trump directive forced the National Park Service to change it. Racist was deleted. The language about a pool of blood was scrubbed. A white supremacist Klansman was recast as just another man with a different view. This wasn't about healing, it was about rewriting. Henry E. Baker fought for truth armed with proof. But proof has never been enough in a country committed to denial. Today's attacks, from Shabuzi's erasure on stage, to Mamdani's exploitative box checking, to Trump's museum censorship, are modern chapters in an old story. It must end. Black Americans built this country, not just with their bodies, but with their minds. Their innovations fueled the economy. Their labor raised the cities. Their brilliance powered the machines. The government has the receipts, 1,200 of them, hidden in the U.S. Patent Office, uncovered by a man who refused to let the lie stand. This isn't about credit, it's about truth. And Scope News will not let that truth be buried. Scope News tells the truth. Here are the sources: Library of Congress African American Innovation Guide, Inventor's Digest, NBER Working Papers, National Archives, ABC 7, The Root, Mississippi Today, direct records from Henry E. Baker's 1913 pamphlet, and more. Legal disclaimer. This episode is a piece of investigative journalism published by Scope News and is intended solely for educational, informational, and historical commentary purposes. The views and conclusions expressed herein are based on publicly available information, verified historical sources, and direct citations. Any mention of individuals, living or deceased, is done in the public interest and with intent to inform, not defame. All trademarks, names, and likenesses referenced remain the property of their respective owners. Scope News is committed to journalistic integrity and truth-telling. We thank the countless foundational Black Americans who unnamed and named who built the United States of America. Thank you so much for watching Scope News.